Moment of silence. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I came in last week, we met with Dan, we went over items A through G on the agenda and slides 3 through 21. He did a lot of work to prepare for this. I'd like to thank him before we get started. He's gonna explain exactly what a board of finance meeting is responsible for, what we do, and keep ahead. Go ahead.
It seems odd, but the state of Indiana requires there be a separate board of finance as well as the school board, but the school board by law is the board of finance. So, but we do have a separate president, Mr. Priest, and a separate secretary, and that's Mr. Smith. So, this is done legally, it's also by our policy, and so that's where we're at. The second slide, if you go on, next. The current depository for Delphi is Horizon Bank, and that's where we place our funds. And my recommendation is that we maintain Horizon Bank for our depository.
Is there a motion to approve the depository corporation fund as presented?
So moved.
It's moved and seconded that we approve the depository of corporation funds as presented. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
Policy 6144 calls for those funds to be deposited for investment, that the funds we have, and we are doing that. But right now we are earning about $34,000 a year, which is not a great deal of money, and so I think there's some opportunity for us to earn more. So the treasurer is also working with me, and we are going to try to see what we can find out. We are meeting with Horizon this Friday to see about sweep accounts. I'm not sure if any of you if you've been involved with sweep accounts, but what they do is they take all the funds you have deposited with them, and then overnight they pay you interest for them. And we have not been doing that. We're going to look at that and some other possibilities. There is a program called Hoosier Fund, which is paying better interest, and we're gonna compare that and see what we can currently do. So some schools who have more cash than we do certainly earn a great deal more interest, over $100,000 a year. So we'll work for that goal. Also now, the next item is removal of outstanding checks. Once a check has not been cashed after 2 years, we can void that check, and I am asking you for authorization to do that.
We have a motion to approve removal of outstanding checks as presented, up to 2 years old. They could be come in any time during the year. During the 12 months. You'll be able to remove them off the list here. If they are resubmitted, they could be paid.
Mr. President, I move to remove the outstanding checks that are needed to allow off books.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve for the removal of any outstanding checks on our books within the next 12 months. Any discussion?
Have any idea, Russ, how many,
They're not very many.
if any at all?
I think there are just a few, and they're not very consequential. But it helps us to balance to get them off.
Is there any more discussion? All in favor of the motion as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
State law again requires that we, as a school corporation, establish some kind of a goal in relationship to our total funds and how much we spend on instruction. And so the way our goal is stated is that the DCSC shall maintain or increase current levels of student instructional support and categories versus overhead operational. So what it's simply saying is we want to maintain the fact that we're spending a percentage on instruction and on teaching as opposed to operations. And you'll see that later on in some of these graphical presentations we have. But we don't want to spend more on operations and less on teaching, and that's our goal.
May I have a motion to establish the goals for 2020 as presented by Mr. Ron?
I move we establish the goals for 2020 as presented.
Is there a second? We move and second to establish the goals for 2020 as presented. Is there any discussion?
So on those goals, we do not need to, at this point, establish percentages of budget or
No.
anything that concrete.
The goal is not to go below what we did last year.
Very good.
Any more discussion? All in favor of the motion as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
We may, can we get a couple more chairs back there? It's a little,
Sorry, guys.
we didn't expect this big a crowd.
This is the Board of Finance meeting.
Oh.
It's not the real. You think I lied to you, didn't you?
Don't stop on my behalf.
Well, the mayor walks in, everything slows down.
Mike was saying what a great job we did, and I'm gonna start off by saying I apologize for this slide. The very last item down there, somehow there's some extraneous data got put in there, so ignore the very last one on the right. But this slide simply tells you what our free and reduced has been over the years since 2011, what our percentage of special education students are, and then English language learners. So those would speak a different language other than English as their primary language. And you can see that those numbers have been fairly consistent across the way. Next. Assessed value, and we may have some agricultural experts in here that can tell us why the assessed value has been going down. Would you like to briefly explain that?
Farmers don't pay as much. Now, with the crops and economics of ag, we've been devaluating land because there's less and less money, of course, to buy. And so even less land starting to become available. So the values has been trending down a little bit that way. I think we have seen a little tick up trend with the values of our houses, but agriculture being the main business of Carroll County, it's needing to go down in times where prices are depressed.
Okay. Estimated population. I thought this was a really interesting slide. It shows you three things. One is the total population in our school district. The second item is the total child population, and I assume by that is from birth to 18. And then the final thing is the school-aged population. So what that says to me is that we have a lot of younger children in the corporation that are going to be coming into the school system. And you can see while the school-age population has been going down, I think at some point it's going to have to start going up because those kids are going to become of age to attend school. This slide is on the number, our student count, and probably the most interesting thing you can see is back in 2011, we had almost 1,600 students in school, and in 2019, it was less than 1,400. So that 200 drop represents about $1.2 million in funding. And so that's what you have to deal with when you're looking at staffing, is when you're losing that kind of income, then you can't necessarily maintain the staffing that you've had in the past. Next. These slides are gonna show you, and this gets confusing because we don't use these funds anymore, but this shows you how much money was left in either what we call the general fund, which it used to be, and now it's called the education fund. So we have spent a great deal of our balances, and you can see at the end of 2018 that we only had $6,000 left at the end of the year in our educational fund. This is another fund that we have. The second one is debt service. That's how we pay our loans. And you can see that there were more funds in that area, and but it is much lower than that now, as next year will reflect. Next is capital projects, and again that's operations, and again the same story, that a great deal of the funds were spent now. And this doesn't reflect 2019, it reflects 2018, but the same has happened in 2019. Next slide is the school transportation fund, again at a low level. Bus replacement fund, if you want to go on, is again, while there's more money in there, we did not buy any buses, and recently we have really curtailed our purchase of buses, and so there will eventually be some money in that fund. And school corporation financial condition, and so this is showing how much of our funds we're spending out of what we have, and you can see that for the last 4 or 5 years that number has been 90% or more. This shows you if you were saving money, you would not be exceeding your support. And this is tough for a person that's colorblind, by the way. So I'm not sure what color these are. I know one's darker than the other, but the darker one shows you the student support, and the other shows what Delphi is spending on student support out of their funds. And so it well exceeds the support we're receiving. And then again, this just shows general fund salaries and benefits as a percent of general fund expenditure. So what that tells you is we're spending most of our money in the education fund on teachers and administrators' salaries and benefits. This simply tells you where this information came from, where this data is. If you go to that website, you will see more data than you would ever want to see in your life. But it is there if you want to see if this was done accurately. Couple things I want you to be aware of. Standard & Poor's downgraded Delphi's bond rating. It came at a difficult time because we need to do a new bond, and so we had a discussion with them this week, or just last week, where we're hoping that that bond rating will be put back up because of some of the things we're putting in place, but it won't come soon enough to influence this next sale we're going to have. And we currently are working on a taxable GO bond, and we aren't sure yet. That will be bid on January 23rd, and at that time we'll find out how much interest there is in purchasing the bond, and also what kind of interest rate we're going to receive. One of the very important questions we have to decide is whether we're going to pay the bond off in 9 years, 11 months, or if we're gonna pay it off in 7 years, and 11 months. If we do the shorter term, it saves us about $55,000 in interest. It does reduce our borrowing capacity, during that time, and so that is going to be the most important question that we'll have to decide, on that question. I think, Mr. Meyer, you had asked me about that, and we would still have the capacity to borrow anywhere from about 2.6 million all the way up to 5 million, as we do this. But if we go with the shorter loan and pay more each year, that will be reduced. So at a 9-year loan, we could borrow another $2.6 million if we had projects that we needed to do. If we stretch that out to 19 years, we could borrow $4.5 million. So at the, I don't know if we wanna handle that now, or if we wanna wait, save that one question for the board meeting. You have an opinion? Should the finance board decide this, or should the
Regular board should decide.
regular should decide? Okay. Any questions on that slide? You're welcome.
He practiced it with me last week, so I knew it was gonna be good. He said, your job is to make me look good. You did a fine job. Thank you. Is there any other questions for anyone, for Dan? Hearing none, that concludes our finance meeting. I have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
And then second, we adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
Take a few minutes break and start at 7:20.